Welcome to the Dream Museum. This is a wonderful place where the ordinary things are put behind glass and even the smallest moments are allowed to rest a while. Every room in the museum hums with quiet stories, the kind that drift between memory and myth. Sometimes what you'll find here is famous. Other times, forgotten. But all of it once mattered to someone. Tonight, we're walking past the grand exhibits, past the shelves of old postcards and the faint ticking of the time hall, until we reach a much smaller room. It smells faintly of butter and burnt bread. Inside a glass case sits something so plain, so familiar, you might not notice it at first. It's a slice of toast, golden brown, a little uneven, curled slightly at the edges. And according to the brass plaque beneath it, this particular slice once saved an entire town. If you've ever stood in your kitchen in the middle of the night, waiting for the toaster to pop, then you might understand this story better than you think. Some folks say miracles happen in churches. Others say they happen in hospitals. But in the fall of 1994, a town in Nebraska claimed one happened in a kitchen. And the proof of that miracle was a single slice of toast. The woman who found it was named Betty Granger. She lived in a small town called Plainview, population about 1,300, counting the dogs. It was early morning. Betty was making breakfast before her husband Carl went out to drive the school bus. The kitchen smelled like coffee and margarine. When she pulled her toast out of the toaster, she noticed it looked different. Darker than usual, but not burnt. She held it up to the light and there, in the swirl of toasted grain, she saw a face, 2 eyes, a soft outline, a shape that looked like hair or maybe a veil. And Betty said to herself, well, I'll be. That looks like the Virgin Mary. Carl said it looked like Tammy Wynette, but they both agreed it was something. So for the first time in 25 years, Betty decided not to eat her breakfast. By lunchtime, Betty had told her sister. By supper, her sister told the grocery clerk. And by the next morning, everybody in Plainview knew about this toast. This was 1994. No internet, no Facebook, no TikTok. When something happened, word spread the old-fashioned way, over fences, over coffee, and down at the gas station. The Plainview Gazette printed a small headline: Local woman finds Virgin Mary in breakfast. It was meant as a joke, but before long, people started showing up at her door. At first, just a few. A neighbor, a pastor, a reporter from the town next door. Then, a dozen more. Then folks from out of state, driving in to see the miracle toast. Some brought cameras, some brought candles, some just stood there quietly in Betty's kitchen, looking at it like it might start glowing. Plainview wasn't used to the attention. The biggest thing that ever happened there was when the high school marching band made it to regionals. So when the news vans rolled in, the mayor called a meeting. He said, "We can either pretend it's not happening, or we can lean into it and maybe fix that church roof." And that's how they did it. They set up a display inside St. Mary's Fellowship Hall. Betty agreed, as long as she could keep the original slice. So they put it under a glass cake dome, just like a birthday cake. Someone wrote a sign that said, "The Blessed Toast, viewing hours, 2 to 6 p.m. For about 3 weeks, St. Mary's was the busiest building in town. Families drove from all over Nebraska. Some said they felt peace when they saw it. One man claimed his back stopped hurting after 10 minutes of staring at the burnt piece of bread. His wife said he just liked sitting down. Local kids drew pictures of the Holy Toast in art class. They hung them up in town hall. One looked like Elvis. Another looked like the mayor. For a little while, Plainview felt special. Strangers talking, laughter in the streets, lights on in the church long after dark, all because of one piece of bread. Now, there were, of course, skeptics. Mr. Dietz, the science teacher, said it was just heat patterns and coincidence. He brought diagrams to prove it. Nobody asked him to, but he did it anyway. Father O'Malley, the local priest, handled it gently. He said, "The church doesn't make official statements about breakfast foods." Then he smiled and added, "But faith has a funny way of showing up where you least expect it." Betty didn't argue with anybody. She just said, well, maybe it's a miracle. Or maybe God just likes toast. Eventually, the reporters left. The lines got shorter, and life went back to normal. Almost. Because all those donations people dropped in coffee cans, well, they added up. Nearly $11,000. Enough to fix St. Mary's roof. So they held a small ceremony, the blessing of the roof. Everyone came, even Mr. Dietz. They served coffee and, appropriately, toast. It rained that night, and for the first time in years, the roof didn't leak. And folks said maybe, just maybe, the miracle worked. Years later, when Betty passed away, her daughter found the toast in the freezer, wrapped in foil, labeled in neat handwriting, "Do not eat. Miracle toast." She brought it to the local heritage museum. They didn't quite know what to do with it. So they put it in a case between the antique sewing machine and the corn parade memorabilia. The sign beneath it reads, "The slice of toast that saved the roof." Now, here's the thing about miracles. They don't have to be big. Sometimes miracles are quiet. Sometimes they're small enough to fit on a breakfast plate. That slice of toast didn't cure anyone. It didn't split the heavens open, but it gave a town something to smile about, something to believe in. And maybe that's enough. You could call it luck, or faith, or heat distribution. But what matters is what it did. It brought people together even if just for a while. And sometimes that's all miracles need to do. If you ever visit Plainview, you can see the toaster yourself. A beige Sunbeam model from the 1980s, cord frayed, still works if you're brave enough to plug it in. There's a brass tag underneath that says, "Used in the miracle of '94. It sits quietly on its shelf, humming under the museum lights. And I like to think it's still waiting for one more miracle. So maybe the real miracle wasn't in the bread after all. Maybe the real miracle was in the people. Maybe it was in the timing, in the need for something small and hopeful during a cold Midwestern fall. Faith, after all, doesn't always come with thunder or angels. Oftentimes it's quiet and small. Sometimes it even smells like faintly burnt toast. Thank you for visiting the Dream Museum. But I'm afraid our time has run out. We'll turn the lights off. The janitor will come do the night shift. And you'll drift closer and closer to your dreams. Good night.